what's going on here, and we need to ask some more questions. Maybe someone will explain this. Should the city be subsidizing private developers when it cannot possibly run its own business? Another troubling item that came to my attention recently is city staff may not be doing their homework. This is in regards to the moving of ECTV station over to the service center on the second floor. I was told recently there is a freight elevator servicing this building. That is the only elevator. That is not acceptable. It's illegal under the law to use a freight elevator to basically take handicapped people up to the second floor of the building. If you do that, you're going to have the state in here and you're going to have other problems. It's also, someone could get very badly hurt. These schemes to save money that are not being thought out carefully are costing us money. The two Howard Street projects seem to have issues like this too, with the use of geo-bonds, buying fixtures for the people and things like that. The same with the Lit Theater, it had major issues. The real issue is staff keeps asking this council to approve these schemes without proper development and basically with no details. The statement is always made, Wally will iron out the details when the negotiations start. That's a very big mistake, a really big mistake. A famous architect, Mies van der Rohe, once said, God is in the details. Remember, Wally is the city manager. If a child gets hurt in that freight elevator going up to that ET station, I can guarantee you there'll be criminal action against the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Perkins of the Evanston Interreligious Sustainability Circle. We were involved in putting together the Evanston Climate Action Plan, and we're here today to talk about green energy. The City Council has an amazing opportunity to take a decisive step in implementing the Climate Action Plan. Reducing emissions is a very difficult task, particularly if every individual has to act to retrofit their home or change the way they drive. But with one action by this body, we can really make a decisive step. The choice you're going to make is an environmental choice, it's economic, but it's also a moral choice. I'm going to hand out a letter from religious leaders in Evanston. It's two-sided, so you can see them all. In a week, we got 20 religious leaders in town to sign on to a letter that basically calls for 100% green energy. The religious community is not known for its lightning speed, so I think this is a remarkable turn of events, and there are more coming. Just to underline that this is an important moral as well as environmental and economic choice. So we hope that you go all the way to 100% green energy. If you could pass those, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gladys Breyer. I live at 550 Sheridan Square. I'm a member of the Interreligious Sustainability Circle and also a member of Citizens for Greener Evanston. I want first to thank the citizens of Evanston for passing the referendum to proceed towards the Community Choice Electrical Aggregation Program in Evanston. This move allows Evanston to purchase 100% renewable energy. Why should we go for purchasing 100% energy when a lesser amount of renewable energy would meet the goals of our environmental plan and cost a few pennies less? The reasons are, one, purchasing 100% renewable will increase the production of more renewable energy and show the size and commitment of those who want to reduce greenhouse gases. And there will only be a very small difference between what we would be paying before some renewable and all renewable. A difference of pennies. Let us do this the right way, the environmental beneficial way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Fleckman. I live at 1657 Church Street. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. City Manager, I'm the president of Citizens Greener Evanston, and I'd like to congratulate all of you for having the foresight to place the electricity aggregation referendum on the ballot, and all of the citizens, at least over 70% who voted for the electricity referendum. Evanston is now in the enviable position to accomplish one of its most significant ECAP goals, to reach a 13% reduction in its greenhouse gas emissions by 2012. It was less than a year ago that in the ECAP report, our sustainability director indicated that our progress on this goal was not where we wanted it to be. CGE is strongly in favor of the city using its newfound capacity to buy electricity on behalf of its citizens and to buy that electricity from 100% renewable sources. I've had the opportunity to speak to many residents of the city over the last 3 to 4 months about the possibility of 100% green energy. Some were skeptical about what the cost would be. And you may believe that the cost of going green is something we can't afford. But you'll find out that's a myth. In fact, the research that we've conducted shows that going with 100% green energy, our citizens will save somewhere on the average of about $20 per month on their electricity bill. We have about 30,000 ComEd customers. That's approximately $600,000 a month in savings that the city can accomplish by going in this direction. That's $600,000 a month that people have to spend money in town, money for food, etc., paying rent. The benefits of 100% green energy will save all of us a significant amount of money, but more importantly, cleaner air benefits all of us, even the neediest of our community. And I'd like to quote Majora Carter. I was looking at a TED speech the other day on the internet. One of the quotes she made, which was astounding to me, was, "As a black person in America, I am twice as likely as a white person to live in an area where air pollution poses the greatest risk to my health." That was astounding. If 100% clean energy has a minimal increase in cost, and I think our research is indicating it might be about $1 a month, isn't the benefit worth it? Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Eleanor Ravel, Mark Werweth of 807 Davis, Kevin O'Connor, and Alex Sproul.
Good evening. I'm Eleanor Ravel. I live at 2815 Lakeside Court. I believe Evanstonians want to live more sustainably, and we want to reduce our environmental footprint. We feel this way for a number of reasons. A couple of those reasons are we are concerned about the warming climate and the devastating impact that it will have on the future that we're going to leave to our children and our grandchildren. We also understand the very serious health consequences associated with getting electricity from coal. Coal-fired power plants are a major source of mercury emissions, and that's a highly toxic metal, especially for our growing children. The emissions are the primary cause of acid rain, and they contribute to asthma and other respiratory diseases. So we have good intentions. We want to reduce our environmental impact, but we don't always act to make the changes needed. Sometimes we don't know what are the actions that are going to have the biggest impact. Sometimes the recommended solutions are costly or time-consuming. And sometimes they're going to ask for too big a change in our comfortable lifestyles for us to move ahead. 100% renewable energy would eliminate all those barriers. It will have a real impact. Commonwealth Edison reports that coal currently accounts for 44% of the electricity it provides to its customers. In a scenario developed by the city's sustainability department, it showed that if we obtained 100% of our renewable energy, we would reduce Evanston's carbon dioxide emissions by 280,000 metric tons a year, and that's the equivalent of taking 56,000 cars off the road. Reducing reliance on coal would cut our carbon footprint significantly, and it would lead to cleaner air and better health outcomes. 100% electricity won't require us to make changes in our daily lives, and it will cut our electric bills too. What a bargain. So let's make as big a dent as possible in Evanston's carbon footprint. Let's go for 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Werwath from 807 Davis Street. I'm a lecturer at Northwestern University. My student team actually worked on the electric car charging project that maybe some of you are aware of, especially with regard to Maple Street Garage and Sherman Plaza Garage. So you can tell where I'm coming from. I'm obviously in support of the aggregation of electricity, especially 100% renewables. I think the city has a phenomenal opportunity right now, and it's a very narrow window. But with this opportunity, not only do we save $20 a month per ComEd customer on average, but over the long term, I think what you're going to see is that renewables are going to come down in cost. This is still in its infancy, renewable energy, and you're going to see tremendous efficiencies the more cities, the more people, the more individuals jump on. At the same time, you're going to see non-renewable energies become more expensive. So this $20 a month savings will actually get better and improve over time. So I think the long-term argument is clear. I think also you have a great opportunity to establish Evanston's reputation as one of the greenest cities on the North Shore. And I think this is a huge step in that direction with potentially just a single stroke of your pen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin O'Connor, 1227 and a half Isabella. Privatizing profit, socializing risk behind closed doors. I submitted a second FOIA request regarding the Trader Joe's deal, only to be denied my FOIA request except for the fact that the parcel owner spent $1.1 million to purchase the property in 2004. No appraisals or any other information a taxpayer should be able to get from their government was given to me. I call for Attorney General Madigan to investigate this non-transparent deal and the violations of the Illinois Open Meeting Act. 810 and 811, Dempster Dodge TIF. Estimated cost to the taxpayers from the estimated budget, $20 million of our tax dollars over a 23-year period. The new owner of this one tax parcel paid $8.1 million for a property that has an EAV, or equalized assessed value, of approximately $11 million. Why do we need to give this owner any of our tax dollars? The 80,000 taxpayer-funded consultant believes that the equalized assessed value will be 30 to 35 million at the end of 23 years. What a delusional projection that is. Joseph Freed, the previous owner, got sales tax rebates throughout their ownership and then went into receivership. Why would it be any different this time? The West Side should have gotten the first TIF 25 years ago, not downtown. This property is built out at Dempster and Dodge, and the roads have been improved around the property. Where will the money go? Finally, this TIF will provide a greater profit for the owner at the taxpayer's expense in Evanston. Shame on this council for making Evanston even more bankrupt. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Alex Sproul of 646 Judson, and I'm, I guess, representing the Green Sanctuary movement at the Unitarian Church. And I have a somewhat more pleasant message, which is that we too support the 100% renewable energy option, which I believe will be available to the council. We would support it even if it turns out that it's slightly more expensive than the cheapest conventionally generated electricity. There's some indication that that will not be the case. We don't know really what the rates will be in the future, but nevertheless, we think that in order to advance the cause of the climate action plan that the council passed some years ago. We think this is the way to go, and we urge you to implement the 100% green energy option.
Thank you. Next is Jonathan Niusma, Padma Rayo, B.K. Rayo, and Sharon Eckersall.
Jonathan Newsoma, 1408 Dempster, and I am on the board of directors of Citizens Greener Evanston, so I am yet another advocate for 100% renewable, representing everyone else out there with the environmental superhero stickers. So just to keep things short, I will be wrapping things up for our group, but everyone else, maybe just raise your hand so we can see how broad the support is for 100% renewables. And just to cite a few facts, and these are in your packet in the staff recommendation. The staff is recommending a minimum of 75% renewable energy, which will save the average homeowner, based on the indicative pricing they received, about $24 a month. With the stipulation that if 100% renewable is less than 1/10 cent per kilowatt hour more, that they automatically go for 100% renewable energy. So we're almost there, and I would really like to extend thanks to Catherine Hurley and Dave Stonebeck for the great legwork they've done on this, but also to Wally for getting the ball rolling here, and the council for realizing there was an opportunity and really seizing the day. And so our message here is don't settle for 75%, take it to 100%. We think that 1/10 cent is going to be enough to get us there, but I'd be more comfortable with 0.2 cents. So we will save more of those details for the scheduled public hearings on April 3rd and April 4th. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And your stickers are excellent.
Padma Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments were reviewed and approved by my attorney. We oppose this council's vote at Kendall to sentence over 24 trees to death and endanger pedestrians with an alley that dumps traffic onto the narrowest street. The Evanston Patch reported that your first ward member assured the developer's lawyer that your vote would be pushed through no matter what taxpayers say. How arrogant does that sound? The city paid tens of thousands of tax dollars to Holland and Knight. But the packet for your March 14, 2011 meeting includes a letter from the developer's lawyer stating that the same firm was hired to sue the city. When we pointed out this glaring conflict of interest, your mayor, your lawyer, and your 8th Ward member repeatedly attacked us. Is that because your 1st Ward member's son works for the same firm? The U.S. Supreme Court condemned a less egregious conflict of interest in Nevada Commission on Ethics versus Kerrigan. Why didn't you protect taxpayers' rights and funds instead of covering up conflicts of interest? At your last meeting, your 7th Ward member interrupted me and then made groundless insinuations, all in violation of your own rules and the First Amendment. Your claim that taxpayers' objections to government officials' misconduct are breaches of decorum, name-calling, and personal attacks is absurd in light of the U.S. Supreme Court's opinion in Brown v. Entertainment Merchants Association, which clearly states that the Constitution forbids your attacks on our First Amendment rights based on your aesthetic views. Our attorney explained the relevant law to you on August 8th and October 10, 2011, including the fact that whether you like what we say or not, we have every right to say it. So before you interrupt, harass, or intimidate us again under color of stale arguments that were soundly refuted, go read the Brown case and study our attorney's statements on video. Your 7th Ward member demanded that we submit our comments in writing, presumably so she can decide what we can and can't say. You know full well that we are represented by competent counsel, so why would we want the opinion of those whose actions we find utterly objectionable and who display a total regard for the Constitution? We told you to direct whatever you have to say to our attorney. We will not put up with your bullying and ranting. When will you learn that you and your agent should keep quiet during public comment without interrupting, retorting, or browbeating taxpayers? You made your 8th Ward members railing against Veolia part of the public record in the video for ANPW on August 8, 2011. Veolia filed suit against the city, and this evidence of a predisposition towards prejudice jeopardizes the city's case. Instead of attacking taxpayers who object to funding your tantrums, why don't you enforce your own rules to restrain your 8th Ward member from such preposterous conduct? If you don't want us to criticize your Kendall vote, then comply with the city code, which requires tree protection and traffic safety. Undo your wrongdoing or expect to be condemned for it. See y'all next time.
B.K. Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments were reviewed and approved by my attorney. If any one of you have any issues, then direct them to my attorney. Don't interrupt me and don't bully me on the pretext of wanting to talk. My concerns are mainly regarding the Kendall re-subdivision, as it involves killing trees, destroying history, and endangering pedestrians, besides causing environmental hazards. The Evanston patch reported that your first ward member assured the developer's lawyer that she had the votes to push the project. You voted with no discussion. You refused to investigate the conflict of interest involving Holland and Knight, where your first ward member's son works. Instead, your mayor, your lawyer, and your 8th ward member attacked us. Doesn't this suggest that there is something very wrong here? Your 8th ward member didn't seem to know how to keep quiet during public comment. She demanded that we should not speak, but she did not stop when it came to expressing her dislike towards taxpayers or establishments. Now the city has another court battle, this time with Veolia. How much will the latest irresponsible utterances of an elected official cost taxpayers? When such is your behavior, why in the world did the 7th ward member accuse my daughter of some so-called breach of decorum? At the last meeting, your 7th ward member should know that taxpayers have every right to criticize government officials. When my daughter asked your 7th ward member what specifically she was complaining about, your 7th ward member's lecture ended in a whimper with an invitation to talk. There is nothing for you to talk about. This council needs to change its behavior and attitude towards us, which I would characterize as hostile, intimidating, and unbecoming of elected officials. If this council wants us to stop speaking about Kendall, then modify your Kendall resolution to comply with the city code and don't kill trees or endanger pedestrians. Solve the problem and stop doing the wrong thing, or resign and stay home, or be quiet and face the music. Finally, are you hostile towards my daughter because she is the daughter of immigrants? Don't bother answering because your conduct speaks loudly for itself. I will return.
Thank you. Sharon Eckersall? I'm just going to sit here tonight. Okay. Thank you, Sharon. That concludes public comments. City Manager, do you have a presentation on tax increment financing at Dodge and Dempster?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, what we'd like to do, the item that is before you this evening, 810 and A11, was passed out of the committee with a affirmative vote. We thought we would take this opportunity for the council's benefit and the community's benefit to make the presentation regarding this issue. Nancy Rakovich, our economic development manager, is here to make some preliminary comments and introduce our guest.
Madam Mayor, City Council, City Clerk Green, and City Manager Wally Bobkowitz. Good evening. I'm Nancy Razovich. I'm the Economic Development Division Manager, and what we want to do tonight is just kind of run through a brief overview of where we've been and where we're going with the Dempster Dodge TIF designation. And I'm just going to do a brief overview of kind of the steps, and then Bob Richlicki is here from Kane McKenna Associates. They are our TIF consultants, and he can get into a little bit more detail about the TIF designation study as well as the next steps. So what we're looking at tonight is generally, it's recognized as one parcel. It's the Dempster Dodge or Evanston Plaza property. Just for context purposes, we just wanted to show you that this is the existing West Evanston TIF, and this particular piece is basically surrounded and adjacent to the existing West Evanston TIF. The goals in trying to move this forward in the proposed redevelopment plan is to really kind of work with the property owner to make sure that we are attracting strong quality retailers, that we're able to help them renovate the property to modern standards, and to really help them address some long-term issues with this property to help sustain a more vibrant, longer-term shopping center. Also, the goals for this redevelopment plan in this TIF are really consistent with our recently adopted economic development plan to focus on neighborhood commercial revitalization, redevelopment, increased tax revenues, and of course job training and job creation and workforce training. One of the things that we wanted to address up front is why is this a standalone TIF? This particular area had been considered and looked at when the West Evanston TIF was created, as well as when it was amended in 2005 and again in 2007. And both times it was not included because the assessed value of the property was just too high. As a result of the way the economy turned, some past property owner ultimately going into foreclosure, and the increase in vacancy rate, the property now has a level where the increment is expected to help, or the tax level is expected to generate some increment that'll help us with the redevelopment of this property. Keeping these TIFs separate also allows us to make sure that we're dedicating whatever additional redevelopment resources for the West Evanston TIF within the West Evanston TIF, and keeping those for the Evanston Plaza separate and inclusive to itself. To date, Kay McKenna has gone through the eligibility study, which Bob Richlicki can talk a little bit more about. And he also, with staff, we've developed a redevelopment plan that is on file with the city clerk, and he will also get into a little bit more detail about that as well. So for tonight, what we're doing is looking for the City Council to adopt two ordinances that'll set the public hearings. There's going to be a public hearing before the Joint Review Board, and then on April 12th is where we're proposing to have that. And then there'll be a public hearing before the City Council, and we're proposing May 14th for that date. The other ordinance includes the authorizes staff with Kay McKenna to prepare all the notices and get all the paperwork associated with the TIF Act that we're required to do to have those public hearings. This is just kind of the general timeline. Assuming that everything gets voted out tonight, we will work with Kay McKenna tomorrow to get the notices out to the Joint Review Board, and then start getting the notices out to the residential properties within 750 feet. Again, the Joint Review Board meeting, we're looking to have that public hearing on June 12th. That could be one or more meetings, but that's when it's going to be opened. We're expecting their decision to be made within 30 days of the opening of the public hearing. And then we're looking at trying to get the public hearing before the City Council for May 14th.
Excuse me, Nancy. Alderman Rainey has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nancy, I'm not sure that the general public listening to this knows what the Joint Review Board is, how it's made up, and I think it would be helpful to explain that. Okay.
The Joint Review Board is made up of the representatives from the taxing bodies that are associated with those that might have quote-unquote increment involved with the tax district. So, for example, the school districts, Cook County's on there, townships on there. So it's those that have a direct involvement with the tax increment, as well as there's, particularly for these TIF districts, there's a representative from the neighborhood. I think it's a public member is the official term. So that's who makes it up, as well as representative from the City Council. So that hearing is scheduled to happen on on April 12th. Again, that's the date when we expect that the public hearing may be open. It's my understanding from our expert over here who's done many of these in Evanston that this could be 1 or 2 meetings, but ultimately the decision, like I said, is supposed to be made within 30 days of the time that it's open. So we're expecting a recommendation one way or another from the Joint Review Board by May 12th. We're looking to have that public hearing before the City Council on May 14th. And assuming that all goes well, then we would bring the ordinances back for adoption on May 28th. One of the reasons we're really kind of trying to move this forward quickly is that the new property owner, Bonnie Management, Scott Inbinder, who we've been working closely with, has actually looked at and has a couple of potential tenants that he'd like to try to see if he can work with. But it's to the point where to get these quality tenants, he needs some assistance. So we want to try to do what we can to try to help move some fill some of those potential spaces through this process.
Thank you, Nancy. Bob Richlicki with Kane McKenna. Good evening, everyone. I just want to point out 2 points from a higher level. In terms of the TIF plan that has been on file, and that would be for consideration for the Joint Review Board and at the public hearing, just want to indicate for members of the City Council, general public, the plan is a draft all the way up until if the city does consider it on May 28th. And secondly, it basically is from a standpoint, it's more of a policy umbrella. You know, the budget that's in there, the $20 million number, and that's not a commitment by the city as it relates to any funding in the TIF. You would consider any requests on a case-by-case basis. All that basically is a outside budget amount over the 23-year period in which the TIF is in place.
Excuse me, Alderman Grover has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Just that May 28th is Memorial Day, so I'm assuming this refers to our meeting on May 29th, Tuesday?
Yes,
Can it be?
would.
All right.
And from the standpoint of the plan, it basically sets forth certain policy criteria, the maximum amount of the budget. Again, the City Council will make determination how much would actually be paid out for individual projects. It identifies general land uses. Again, from the standpoint of any planning, zoning, it doesn't supersede any of those powers of the city. You would consider to do that on a case-by-case basis. The eligibility report, which is included as part of the plan, is the footings as it relates to under state law, what the requirements are. 5 factors have to be found, a minimum of 5 factors. Based upon our survey work as well as additional assistance from city staff, we found 6 factors were present in this area, so that allows for the basis for the designation. And again, from a standpoint of the TIF plan, it serves as a policy umbrella as it relates to things like the scope of the area, the geographic area, which is delineated in the plan, the maximum amount of the budget, and the types of land uses. Again, any individual project would be brought to the city council for consideration, and no commitments are associated with the plan at this time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Alderman Rainey first.
Thank you, Bob. Could you explain just a bit about the financing issues? For example, we frequently hear that when there's a TIF, people in the TIF don't pay taxes. And, I mean, there's all sorts of myths about TIFs. But it's not a myth, it's just confusion. When we say that we have a budget, and let's say this is a real budget, and that there's going to be, let's say, $2 million paid from the increment for a project in the TIF. And then later we find that our finance director tells us that we're going to bond for the $2 million. People tend to forget that the $2 million is going to be repaid from the increment. So could you explain that better? Sure. Because when people see general obligation bonds being marketed, they're thinking general fund money.
Right. Okay, in response to your 2 questions, the first is As it relates to no taxes or tax breaks, again, from understanding of the assessor's office, the county clerk's office, just want to make clear, all property is uniformly assessed. Your market value, as it relates to how the assessor determines it, whether it's on a cost basis or income basis, if you're in a TIF or outside of the TIF, no differential. So all property is uniformly assessed. Secondly, as it relates to the extension or the levying of the tax rate, again, whether you're in a TIF or you're outside of a TIF, same levy applies. So property, in addition to being uniformly assessed, property owners will pay the same tax rate, will pay the same amount of taxes, again, whether they look at their tax bill, whether they're inside or outside of a TIF. The only differential as it relates to TIF is once taxes are paid is the allocation of the dollars, and hence the word increment. If the base taxes for that property when it was set up were $10,000, but subsequent to the TIF being set up, there was expansion or redevelopment of the property, and the taxes rose to $20,000. Again, that assessment is based on uniform rates. The tax rates are uniformly applied or extended against that property, so $20,000 in taxes would be paid similar to whether you're in or out of a TIF. Differential is when the taxes are paid, it goes to the county treasurer. They'll make a split. If $10,000 was the base, that $10,000 returns to all the taxing districts as per normal. Everybody gets their portion, the schools, the county, forest preserve. The $10,000 increment goes to a special fund which the city maintains. It's separately and independently audited. You perform an annual report for the taxing districts as to how the monies are expended. And again, those dollars are sent to that fund. So again, uniform assessments, uniform tax payments. What happens is for the increase over the base, those dollars are segregated or allocated by the county treasurer. And again, the city receives those monies separately, separate fund, separate audit, separate requirements as to how those monies are spent. In relation to your second question about the general obligation, that may be utilized as it relates to the ultimate security for the funds, but really as it relates to the utilization of how that debt service would be paid, the city, and you've done this in the past with other bond issues and other TIF districts, you direct a new stream of revenue to pay for those, any bonding. And you've done it with general obligation funds in the past. So as a result, you're able to abate the taxes from a general standpoint, general taxpayer standpoint, and utilize the new increment or new revenues to actually pay for that obligation. And again, the way the city has done this in the past, you've carefully reviewed what the obligations are and matched that obligation to what the revenue sources are, plus some coverage, usually, in order to make that work. So I hope that answers your question or questions.
Alderman Wilson.
I was just interested if we have some specifics on exactly what the property owner is looking to have done.
At this point, I really can't talk too much about it. He does have some ideas for potential tenants, but he's kind of in this catch-22. The buildings, the site, everything is very tired, and a lot of the spaces need a lot of work. So what we're wrestling with is the fact that he wants to bring some quality tenants that are going to get us, more sales taxes, more revenues, some better, better money coming in. And in order to do that, he's got to make some better deals. It's it's tough economy still out there. We're fortunate that we've got some good projects coming forward, but it still takes a lot of give and take, and there's still a lot of competition out there. So I can't really get into a lot of details, but whatever, and I just want to clarify and reiterate what Mr. Richlicki had just said, is whatever kind of assistance or projects might be coming forward, it's all ultimately going to come back to the City Council before any sort of specific funding is actually appropriated for these potential projects, build-outs, anything that they might need assistance for.
Alderman Braithwaite.
I just want to first thank City Manager Bob Quitz as well as the staff for this presentation. I'm excited just on behalf of not only the residents of the Second Ward, but also West Evanston, and I share that boundary with Alderman Holmes. To Alderman Wilson's question, I want to point to page 250, and I think there's an actual schedule here for where the dollars are going to be spent. So I'm just wondering if you can talk to that. It's Exhibit 4, page 250. It breaks down some of the spends that includes infrastructure, public facilities. I think the most important thing is the remediation of the site.
What this is, and I'm going to have Bob jump in at any time. What this really is the overall budget for kind of every possible scenario. So this is not necessarily the project-specific budget. And so as the developer might be coming through with projects, this is where we collectively agreed that we think there might be some need. For example, the remediation item that you had pointed to, the site had been encapsulated, and part of that was, the impavement and all of that protects the encapsulation of the environmental. If they need to do or want to do any sort of improvements to help expand parking, landscaping, or to kind of modify that, there may need to be some additional remediation done. So what we've tried to do, and again, I'm going to have Bob jump in at any time, but make sure that we've kind of captured what may be the worst case potential for each of these particular categories that are allowed and allowable expenditures under the TIF.
All right, thank you very much. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I get started, I have a minor correction to the minutes, which is not substantial, so I'm going to move the minutes in the consent agenda.
All right.
Consent agenda. First is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 19, 2012. The Administration and Public Works Committee met and requests your approval of the payroll through March 11, $2,502,110.65. The City of Evanston bills should be approved through March 27 in the amount of $1,123,694.48. The committee requests your approval of the sole source purchase of a new athletic field line painting machine in the amount of $24,953 from the Cromer Company. The 100% reimbursement will be realized from the field maintenance fees paid by the city to the city by the affiliated athletic organizations. We ask your approval also of a lease purchase agreement for 2 Toro Groundmaster riding mowers from Rinders in the amount of $117,235.64. Payment will be in 3 annual installments of $39,078.55. We ask your approval also of to authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the 2012 parking garage roof project to Bayless and Bayless of Evanston for a total of $45,950 at the Maple Avenue and Church Street garages. We ask your approval also to authorize the city manager to execute a contract for consulting services for the washroom renovation project at the Civic Center to Bayless and Bayless in the amount of $47,500. We ask your approval also to authorize the manager to execute another contract for the 2012 Cured Place Pipe Spot Line Sewer Rehabilitation to CTR Systems in the amount of $21,450. We ask your approval also for the purchase of replacement portable radios from SAT Radio Communications, doing business as Industrial Communications, for the base bid of $45,915.63. Funding will be provided by the Emergency Telephone System Fund and the Parking Fund account. We ask your approval to purchase 50 streetlight power centers in the amount of $196,400 from Excel Limited, Inc. They are the sole distributor and fabricator of the streetlight power centers upon which the city has standardized. Next, staff and the committee request your approval of a one-year contract extension for the purchase of 350 cubic yards of concrete at a cost of $101 per cubic yard, 200 cubic yards of high early strength concrete at a cost of $121 per cubic yard, and 50 cubic yards of flowable fill at a cost of $89 per cubic yard to Ozinga Ready Mix for a total of $64,000. The general fund and alley account and the water account and the sewer account will contribute to the cost. Staff recommends City Council approval of Resolution 20R12, which authorizes a 4-month extension of license to Comcast for facilities in James Park under existing terms and conditions until June 30, 2012. $1,200 is the revenue received per month for this. We recommend your approval to proceed with the implementation of a community choice electricity aggregation program in Evanston in accordance with Public Act 960176 and the proposed approach outlined in the November 29, 2011 City Council meeting and memo dated.
Excuse me, Alderman Wilson.
If you take that one off the consent. So.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay.
Yes, this will be off the consent agenda.
Sorry, I should have done that before you read most
I
of
should
it.
have just done it
Sorry.
anyway. The electric aggregation is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. The special events calendar is next. We request your approval of the 2012 calendar with the exception of 5 proposed events contingent upon compliance of all requirements as set forth in the special event policy and guidelines. Costs for services for the events require 100% reimbursement from sponsoring organizations or event coordinators. Next, we ask your approval to introduce proposed ordinance 11012, by which the council will amend Title VII, Chapter 15 of the City Code to enact a new section for alley paving improvements. The committee has selected the 50-50 funding split for the construction of both permeable and impermeable alleys. Next is A8, which is for introduction. We request your approval of Ordinance 24012, by which the City Council had authorized paving of the alley north of Brummel Street, east of Richmond Avenue, through the special assessment process. Funding will be provided from the special assessment funds and from homeowners to be collected over a period of 10 years. Also, we recommend your approval of Ordinance 25012. The City Council would ask you to authorize paving the alley north of Brummel, east of Hartree, with the special assessment process. Funding for this work will be from special assessment funds and from homeowners to be collected over a period of 10 years. Next, the following 2 ordinances are going to be introduced, and then the committee chair will address them regarding suspension of the rules. So let's just leave them on for introduction. If you have a problem with them, when the committee chair deals with it, you can address it then. First, A10, Ordinance 33012. We request approval to authorize the establishment of interested parties registries and adopting rules for such registries for redevelopment project areas in the city of Evanston. This has to do with the Dempster Dodge TIF district. Next, Ordinance 34012, which is designating, proposing approval of a redevelopment plan and project, adopting tax increment allocation financing, convening a joint review board, and calling a public hearing regarding the proposed Dempster Dodge redevelopment area. These are both for introduction, and the committee chair will address them later. Next, A12 is for action. The Liquor Commissioner and the committee recommend adoption of 29012, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses from 27 to 28 to permit issuance to Sandkelp and Shanti LLC, doing business as Mount Everest Restaurant, 630 Church Street. Next, the local commissioner recommends adoption of Ordinance 30012, which amends subsection 356 AA of the City Code of 79 as amended to permit service of alcoholic liquor. A14 recommends adoption of Ordinance 31012, which amends subsection 356AC of the Evanston City Code 1979 as amended to permit consumption of alcoholic beverages purchased on site at the Cinemark Century Theater in Evanston. For action tonight.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes, okay. So A14 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair, having to do with Century Theater. Next is Ordinance 32012. Staff has asked that this be removed, so I'm going to let the committee chair deal with it and move to hold this, which is what staff is requesting. Next, under Planning and Development, the committee requests your approval for the adoption of 22R12, which would approve the creation of 2 legally conforming lots from 1 at 1422 Dodge, the 2 lots that front Dodge Avenue and Greenwood Street. This is for action. Next one is for introduction, and the committee chair will deal with suspension of the rules if the council agrees. The Plan Commission and city staff recommend the addition of a zoning definition for payday loan and consumer loan establishments to distinguish them from other financial institutions and recommend those businesses be allowed by special use only in the C2 zoning district with a 1,000-foot buffer between such establishments. For introduction. Under the Rules Committee, the Rules Committee and staff recommend that the City Council adopt Resolution 19R12 in support of the Northwest Municipal Conference's legislative program for 2012, which sets certain state and federal legislative priorities for its member communities. Under Housing and Community Development Act Committee, that committee of which several members are here tonight, recommends that the adoption of the city's consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, commonly known as the CAPER, for the city's community development block grant, CDBG, home investment partnership, and emergency shelter grant programs for 2012. Under appointments, the mayor is recommending the following appointments to the Arts Council: Kurt Condra and Nan Stein. Commission on Aging, Dorothy Strong. Transportation and Parking Committee, Hugh Bartling, the liaison from the Environment Board. For reappointment to the Economic Development Committee, Raymond Zenich, and the Environment Board, Paige Finnegan. Madam Mayor, that completes the consent agenda, and I move approval.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
0.
9-0, the consent agenda passes. Alderman Burris, could we have Administration and Public Works, please?
The committee asks your approval of A5, update on community choice electricity aggregation referendum, RFP, for indicative pricing and qualifications and next steps.
Move approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. And I want to start by saying I do support this. But from correspondence and comments I've been getting from the public, one thing causes me to be concerned, and that generally revolves around what I'll call terminology, and that is it's generally being asserted that we're going to be getting 100% renewable energy. That's what we're purchasing. And I think what probably isn't clear to many people is that we're not actually buying electricity from a windmill, or we're not buying electricity from a hydroelectric dam. What's really being done is credits are being purchased on a market. So you're basically buying the right to say you're purchasing renewable energy. So if there's a windmill in California that produces electricity, you can purchase the benefits of that renewable energy. That's fine. That creates an economic incentive for the production of that energy. But it bothers me because as I sit here in Evanston, and if I flip the light switch on, I'm still getting electrons from a coal-fired plant, or I'm still getting electrons from a nuclear plant. And I think it's important for everyone to be mindful of that. Just by writing a check and putting some money into the system doesn't actually change the carbon footprint. There's only one way to change that. That's to use less or to produce something different. And I just don't want to be congratulating ourselves prematurely simply by writing that check or making that donation to the economic environment. So with those comments, I do support this step, and it is an important step, but it is just a small step, and we have a long way to go.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I support this, but I would like to make an amendment to the staff recommendation, and that would be that we, rather than possibly but purchase 100% renewable, that we affirmatively direct staff to purchase 100% renewable energy. I think that we, under this plan, and I do understand what Alderman Wilson is saying, the part of the reason why I support this is because it is the issue of the more that communities support renewable energy, the more likely it will be that investment dollars will go towards renewable energy. And I very much wish we were not purchasing from a soft coal power plant, as we will be. But I think in the future that will change. But the market needs to change first, and this is heading in that direction. We will be saving money, whether it's the 75% renewable or the 100% renewable. I think that according to what we've gotten from the staff, it shows that the difference is that it's $3 in terms of difference in cost per year. And so to me, that $3 is absolutely worth it, and I think that we should direct staff to move towards a 100% renewable.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Mayor.
City Manager.
Just to be clear, Alderman Nguyen, members of the council, that this evening we are merely asking for your acceptance of the update that we're providing and then the schedule for hearings. So if the council would like to direct staff to change the draft plan, because what we'll be doing with your concurrence to this item is holding what will now be 3 community meetings on the 3rd, 4th, and 9th of April, and then coming back to you on the 10th of April. So if the council would like us to go to these hearings and say that you have amended the staff's recommendation on the proposed plan, aggregation plan, 400%, I think that would be the appropriate motion. Otherwise, under state law, we need to go and get comment on this draft plan, and that's the purpose of the 2 required hearings. And because of the spring break, next week we're going to hold an additional meeting on the free Monday that we have on April 9th.
Thank you, City Manager. Yes, that is precisely what I would like to do, and I appreciate the additional hearing beyond the spring break week. So.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
Do we need to have a second on that?
I was just going to agree in second.
All right.
That's all I needed.
Thank you, Alderman Burris. Alderman Grover.
I think I was just going to go with the suggestion from Mr. Newsma that we expand the differential between the 75 and 100% from 0.1% to 0.2%, giving us a little more room to negotiate in favor of the 100% renewable sourcing of electricity. But how does that work, Alderman Nguyen, with?
I would prefer that the staff, that the memo be amended to indicate that we are supporting the 100%.
Her mic's not on. Is your mic on?
I guess it was mine.
Thank you. Okay. Would everyone please